The only reason you're looking for approval from other people is because you do not yet approve of yourself or trust that God already approves of you. And this was huge for me. This was huge for me because for so long, I was looking to other people to see how I was doing, to see if I was doing the right thing. I let other people's standards, and some of them were great standards, right? So it's not like these were all bad things. But the reality was, we kind of got in the habit of holding ourselves to other people's standards that other people had set, and therefore needing their validation for whether to determine whether we were being successful in our life, or whether our decisions were good, or whether what we were doing was the right thing, whether we could celebrate what we were doing or not celebrate what we were doing. And we were constantly looking for outside validation. And or it was coming from numbers, right? What are in business, the numbers, right? How many followers do I have? How big is my team? How much money? How many have I sold, right? We get so caught up in that as validation. And when you're always looking for outside validation, guess what? You're always on shaky ground, always on shaky sand. Because guess what? What if you do something that's really amazing, but the other person, maybe they're having a bad day and they don't notice? And now you're crumbled and you're crushed because somebody else didn't validate you. When the goodness or the rightness or the effectiveness of what you did has nothing to do with whether they see it or not, with whether they commented on it or not. It needs to come from us knowing, again, like Noel just talked about, the identity, who we are, what we want, what we have to offer, what we believe is true and right. And again, if we don't approve of our own selves, it's impossible to do that. And you'll always be looking for it from somebody else. And when you're looking for it for somebody else, you can't have your own confidence because you're always taking confidence from somebody else. You're getting it elsewhere, outside of yourself and outside of who God says that you are.
Welcome to the EQ for Entrepreneurs podcast. Like most business owners, you already know you need good business and marketing strategies to scale and be profitable. But at some point, you've hit the dreaded wall where you feel stuck and frustrated. EQ for Entrepreneurs is for business owners and leaders who are honest enough to admit that they just might be the ones holding their business back and are brave enough to change that.
We're Noble and Kathy, and every week we're having candid conversations about all things emotional intelligence and how growing that has allowed us to get out of our own way and is radically transforming both our businesses and our personal lives. This is the secret sauce strategy for modern entrepreneurs who are tired of hustling without seeing results and want to grow a business and a life that they love.
Hey, welcome entrepreneurs, leaders, and influencers to episode 65, which is going to be on
the secret to being an emotionally confident entrepreneur. So today's episode is all about confidence. And you got both of us again today.
What?
It's been a hot minute since we've done a joint show. So
right.
We've been doing solo shows lately, he and I, but today you get to hear from us both.
And we're kind of celebrating a couple neat milestones.
Yeah.
Number one, we're on episode 65. Most podcasts fizzle out by episode 40.
Woo woo.
So that's one. The second one?
We are almost at 13,000 downloads. So yay. We want to say thank you to those of you who have been following, that have subscribed, that are listening. Thank you. We are so happy that you're listening, and we love hearing back from you about how this is helping you. So if you wouldn't mind, here's our big ask. Leave us a review. Rate us, leave us a review, leave a comment. All of that helps us, and we read every one of them, and we really appreciate it.
Yes, and for those of you that have listened all over the world, man, I was just looking previously at Australia, and so big shout out to all the Australians out there, Mexico, Russia, Africa.
We've got like
Brazil,
40 countries that have listened. Yeah,
it's the India. It's nuts.
It's crazy.
So it's been a tremendous blessing. We're 7 months into this journey, and very, very excited about continuing to impact people in a positive way from an emotional growth standpoint.
So not only that, but we have also launched a membership, which has 46 people in the membership, our founding members, which we're so excited about. We have loved just walking in this journey with them and really helping them. What the membership is all about, it's called the Entrepreneur's Growth Lab, and it is all about taking emotional intelligence and applying it to your business. Because, oh my gosh, I don't know that there's really any area that emotional intelligence doesn't help you be better in when it comes to running and operating a business. So we're so happy about that. And
well, before you jump into
okay.
one other thing that's been neat,
exciting.
One of the other things that's been neat about the membership group is its community. It's a safe community that everybody is has the goal to grow emotionally, and it's been great to we have workshops. We have twice a month we do workshops. Basically, both of each one has a different focus, but where we have discussion and we really discuss and provide some great content and discussion around the areas of emotional growth. One of the times we had a discussion about triggers and how triggers impact our lives, our families, and our businesses, just to give you an example.
Yeah. And this month, we are diving into boundaries, how to create and set boundaries in business, which is going to be super exciting because we did not have boundaries in business for not just years, decades.
Yeah, I mean, our whole lives, we've never known about boundaries.
Yeah,
so this is going to be powerful. Yeah.
So anyways, last thing is we have been working behind the scenes very hard. We're getting ready to launch one more thing, and that is coming September 21st. We're creating a course for you guys because here's what we realized. We love our membership. We love having people in and applying the principles of emotional intelligence to their business. But we've realized that most people don't have any kind of foundation with emotional intelligence. They don't even know what EQ is. They don't even know the 4 quadrants and how to look at themselves and there was so much more work that we needed to do before we could even get to the application part. Because guys, we are not taught these skills. They don't teach these skills in schools, which I think that they should, but most of us weren't taught these things in our homes. So where are you going to get it from? Where are you going to get it from? Society as a whole, I think, is now starting to wake up to the fact that emotional intelligence matters and is not just important, but it's vital to our health as people, to our health as families, to our health as communities. And so there's starting to be more and more interest. And so we said, we're going to do this. We are going to create a course that is just specifically because most of the training that's out there right now, it's for corporations. If you're a C-level staff in a corporation, you've probably had some kind of training on emotional intelligence. Beyond that, there's almost none. Maybe if you're in academia, maybe there's going to be some if you're in academia, again, at kind of high levels there. But again, for most of us that are just out there trying to grow a business, raise a good family, and live a good life, it's just not there. So we're changing that. And you guys, we're so excited because it's coming in 2 weeks, September 21. It's coming.
All right. So today, again, we're talking about being an emotionally confident entrepreneur and kind of what does that look like. So I want to throw some questions at you to kind of chew on and get the juices going. So how confident are you? How confident are you? How bold are you? How authentic would you say that you are? How real are you? And how transparent are you? And another way that I like to look at the Rubik's Cube is what would others say? How would others in your personal and professional circles say that you are regarding your confidence, regarding your boldness, your authenticity, your transparency, your realness? So, because again, sometimes we can have a different perspective than those around us. So that's just a couple things to think about there. And ultimately, these are all questions. The answers to those questions are all clues to how confident you are. And I want to just share a couple stories with you. Here just a second. So, babe, you want to go ahead and
Before I get to the stories, here's the deal. Here's why this matters so much. We've been entrepreneurs for several decades. We have been around entrepreneurs for 23 years now, right? And this is a very common theme, and you know this, right? You as our audience, you know this. There are some individuals who just have an innate sense of confidence in themselves. Sometimes it's completely misplaced. Like sometimes they're confident and they really don't have any reason to be confident, but it doesn't matter. They're just confident in their confidence, but those individuals we have found are few and far between. Most people struggle with confidence. Most people struggle with the confidence that that they can do it, that they have what it takes, that people want what they have to offer. And here's the thing, it's very hard to build a strong business when you don't have that confidence, when you don't have the confidence that you have what it takes, that people want to hear the message that you have to share. They don't want what you have to offer. It's hard if you don't have the confidence to know that you can figure it out, to know that you have a place in this world and your voice matters in this world, and what you have to contribute, somebody wants. Think about this. This is something that I think about, is all the times that we hold back out of a lack of confidence. Here's the deal. There are people out there who need exactly what you have to say, who need what you have to offer, who are waiting for you to show up, whose lives are going to be better when you show up, or because you show up, because you have a voice, because you say whatever it is that you say and that you're called to say, and the difference that you're called to make. Their lives will be better. And so it's like, how long do we want to keep these people waiting? It's like this strange dichotomy. It's, we want to serve, we want to give, we want to make a difference. And these people out there want what we have, need what we have, are looking for and waiting for what we have. But it's like there's this barrier in between us. And that barrier, one of them anyways, is confidence. It's just our confidence as entrepreneurs to say, I have what it takes. I can figure this out. And well, I'm going to get to that. That's the secret. The secret. I'll get to the secret kind of at the end. So let's go to a few stories.
So a couple stories here that were my confidence, and this is recent stories. You guys know how we roll. I share very, real-time lessons learned of how I'm growing in my emotional growth journey. Many of the episodes, a lot of times on Thursdays, is when some of my personal realizations and epiphanies and stuff are coming to the surface. And two recent examples, business examples. One, my very close friend of over 20 years, Colonel 06, Full-Bird Colonel Eric Lopez, who's got a great YouTube channel called, and I think Instagram as well, called Lopez on Leadership. Super guy, tremendous wisdom, very, very successful military career. He had a conversation with me recently and was giving me some input and some insights and said, hey, Noble, man, why don't you reach out to some of our West Point classmates, because many of our classmates are in positions of leadership, their own businesses, they run businesses, they have teams of folks that could really use your EQ training. Their companies could use your EQ training, their teams, their staffs that they run could use, your EQ training. Why don't you reach out to some of them? And he gave me a couple specific ones that are very, very successful CEOs of companies. And on the phone, I was like, oh man, that's a great idea. Absolutely love it. As soon as I hung up the phone, some of my old stories that I used to tell myself started to flood my being. Noble, dude, you're not at their level. What do you have to tell them? They wouldn't give you the time of day. You're not worthy. You don't have value. But all my old scripts started to play, and I had to, begin to, okay, so thankfully I was aware, oh man, here we go again. I'm starting to kind of rehash some of the old stuff. So again, I'm thankful my EQ has grown. And in one of those areas, of course, is self-awareness. So the fact that I was aware that I started to go through my old stories. And then I had to manage another part of emotional intelligence, manage my emotions, and give myself the truth about who I am and the content that we've created and the value that has not only changed my life personally, but it's already been helping a lot of other people that we've been working with. But that was one area where my confidence totally, I could have taken in the past. What I would have done is I would have taken the weak sauce way out and never and like, hey, that was great advice, Eric, but I'm never going to do that because, right? And I'd come up with some excuse. I would self-sabotage. I would begin to self-sabotage, which has been my pattern and trend for literally 20 years until, again, thankfully, recently through this emotional growth journey, I'm self-sabotaging less and less and less, which is a huge and tremendous blessing. A second story where my confidence was recently kind of challenged, a really good friend of mine, Chris Hoffman, who is a former Marine and also the founder and host of the Ambitious Vet podcast, had just interviewed a guy named John Lee Duvis, who was a former Army veteran and the host of an uber successful podcast called Entrepreneurs on Fire. And he's had that for years. I've been listening to his podcast for years and years. So I reached out to my buddy Chris and I said, dude, you interviewed JLD, John Lee Duvis. I'm like, that's crazy, right? Because he's a massive influencer in the podcasting space and has interviewed probably thousands of entrepreneurs at this point. And he said, oh yeah, absolutely. No, but do you want me to connect you with him? And I'm telling you, we were going back and forth on Instagram. I like froze. He doesn't know this. Like maybe if he listens to this, he will, but I froze. I'm like, what do I tell Chris so that I can save face and tell him, no, I don't want you to connect me with him.
Oh my gosh.
Because he's way above my pay grade, right? He's above my level. All those old stories started to kick in again, right? Oh no, man, I got to tell Chris something. I got to come up with some good excuse, self-sabotage, come up with some good excuse of why. And he's like, and I don't even know if I had even answered yet. He's like, oh no, dude, I'm going to connect you with him. You definitely need to interview him on your podcast. And I was like, no. So it was a double thing, right? So one side of me was like, that's awesome. But again, my old stories, which often can end up controlling our behavior. I'll just say in my situation has definitely I've allowed to control my behavior for many, many years, maybe even most of my life.
So I'll just interject. The good news is we did get that interview with John Lee Duvis, and that is happening this month. So we are excited to bring that to you guys.
Yes, that's right. So again, the blessing is, I was self-aware, like, oh snap, all these stories are kicking in, and I've got to go through we've covered our processes and stuff, and in our membership group, we talk about that too. In our course, we're going to be talking about that as well. But just how, kind of our path that we use to deal with some of those old unhealthy emotional stories from our childhood, from wherever they come from, so that we can work through them and deal with them in an emotionally healthy way. So anyway, those are two recent stories and examples of where my confidence has been challenged, and I've really had to work through and grow through each of those so that I don't revert to my old habits of self-sabotage.
Yeah. So does any of that relate to you? Can you relate? Right? Whether it be self-sabotage like Noble talked about, or whether it just be not showing up, not putting yourself out there, having ideas, not doing anything about it, not going live, all the things that's needed to do to have those conversations, to move yourself forward. Like, I think we all got something, right?
Yeah. A couple of the thoughts too is, how does a lack of self-confidence show up in your life? What does a lack of confidence look like in your personal life, in your professional life? What does it look like? So for me, not being confident has caused me, and I've got some notes here, has caused me to play small most of my life. So playing small, way below what I feel I'm capable of. And here's another thing too, much of the success that I have achieved personally has come from an unhealthy place. And for me, it's been people-pleasing, an addiction to people-pleasing. And then also total performance-based relationships. So that, well, man, these people are only going to love me as long as I'm performing, as long as I'm behaving or, meeting their standards or expectations or something, kind of thing. Being inconsistent. Being consistent was self-sabotage. How crazy is that? So inconsistent in some of the areas that I need to be, and consistent in the area of self-sabotage. Lack of focus, unhealthy relationships, with no boundaries. Again, this boundaries is a whole new concept for me over the past few years. Being easily overwhelmed, a small emotional capacity, unhealthy and inappropriate conflict resolution, tremendous performance anxiety before speaking to audiences or speaking to crowds or, running our business stuff, doing our trainings and that kind of thing. Again, but thankfully, as a result of the emotional growth, a lot of this has changed. But ultimately, not being all that God has called me to be are the areas that have impacted me negatively as a result of me not being confident. And using kind of a biblical reference in Matthew 25:14-30, it's one of my favorite chapters. It talks about the parable of the talents. And ultimately, there's one guy in there, one of the employees in this guy's company. He had a small business. He was running a small business at the time, back in the old school days. And one of his employees, one of the 3 employees he had, operated completely out of fear, 100% out of fear. And again, that's a place that I've been in. Another example, right? So of the success that you have achieved in your life, where has it come from? What place has it come from? Has it come from a healthy emotional place? Or has it, again, like me, has it come from either out of fear? Maybe you're performing out of fear, or it's a performance out of people pleasing, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So those are a couple things to think about. So again, does any of my story relate with you? So again, some more questions to chew on. Where does your confidence come from? Where does your confidence come from? Again, from a healthy or unhealthy place? Because there's a big difference between confidence and cockiness. Big difference, right? Many people I know I don't dig someone that's cocky or arrogant, because it's a lot of times it's coming from some sort of insecurity. Many times someone that's cocky or arrogant is coming from an insecure place, which is kind of ironic. Mm-hmm. How would you? So here's another great one. What does it mean to be confident? What does it mean? What does confidence mean to you? How would you define confidence? And I encourage you, whether driving down the road right now, you're going to work, you're coming back from work, you're at the gym, take some time today. When you got 3, 4, 5 minutes, just jot it down, man. Here's how I would define confidence. How would you define confidence? So for me, that's personally someone who is at peace with themselves. Are you at peace with yourself? Someone who is emotionally present. Would your spouse, would your children, would your coworkers say that you are emotionally present? Someone who is comfortable in their own skin and is comfortable in truly being themselves. Now, part of being comfortable in your own skin and truly being yourself is being self-aware enough to even know who you are. If you've been a people pleaser like me for your entire life, man, I just started discovering who I am, because for most of my life, I've been trying to be who she wants me to be, who you want me to be, and you want me to be, and you want me to be. But when I'm trying to be who everyone else wants me to be, I don't even know who I am. And so that's another key piece of, emotional intelligence and confidence, in my opinion, is that having the self-awareness to even knowing, man, who are you? Yeah. Right? So anyway, there's some thoughts for you.
Yeah. So, and one of the things that confidence for me has looked like is, my definition of confidence, just to add some more color to that picture, is someone who can say the things that they hold to be true, regardless of what other people will think, of what other people will say, of what the consequences may be. And honestly, I mean saying them in a good way, right?
Safe.
So in a safe way. There's a difference between, I'm going to tell you the truth and I'm going to punch you in the face with it, right? Like, nobody likes that. But you can say the truth that in what you believe to be true and what you believe, what you know, you can say it in a safe way. But I have so often found myself not doing that, because I go through this whole list in my head of, well, if I say that, this person's going to think that, and that person's going to think that, and blah, blah, blah. I go through this whole litany of reasons why I shouldn't say it, or I think through what all the consequences could potentially be of me saying this thing, and then I just say nothing. And that's obviously not the goal. That's not the goal either, to do that. So I am excited. We're going to tell you guys a couple secrets that we have learned and are learning and are implementing when it comes to confidence. Okay, number one, confidence comes from your willingness to face and endure uncomfortable emotions.
Boom. Hey, that is humongous.
Boom.
I honestly had not even thought of that until Kathy wrote it down for the show notes. I'm like, holy cow, that gives me a whole different perspective on confidence. And it made me think, okay, well, based on that angle or perspective, how confident am I, and how comfortable am I to deal with, face, process uncomfortable emotions? That was a great one.
Because if you think about it, why are we not more confident in putting ourselves out there or doing this or taking that risk or taking that step? It's because we think something might happen. And see, this happens all unconsciously, right? All of this is happening kind of on the subconscious level. Maybe we're not thinking them out loud. Maybe you are. But for most people, I know that it's not a conscious thought, but it's still happening. It's still happening, right? So we think, if I do this thing, this other thing is going to happen, and I don't think I can handle that feeling, or I won't know what to do with that feeling, or that feeling will be too much. I won't like that. It'll be uncomfortable in some form or fashion. And so confidence comes when we say, okay, I can handle the feeling. If I can do this thing, and even if consequence A, B, C, or D, whatever happens, and it makes me feel some kind of way, I can handle that. I don't have to be afraid of that emotion. I don't have to be afraid of that feeling. So yeah, that's huge, you guys. That's huge.
Yeah, that's a big one. A second one. So number two, kind of secret
number two,
or perspective is confidence comes from knowing who you are. Knowing, where does your identity come from? Where is your identity placed in? Who is your identity placed in? I tell you, for many guys, our identity comes from what we do, which is really interesting. Why is that? Why, when someone asks us, hey, what do you do? 9 out of 9.5 times, people, and not just guys too, so, ladies as well, women too, will share their job. Well, why do you share your job? When someone asks you what you do, why don't you say, what do you do? Well, man, I snowboard, I hang out with my family, we homeschool our kid, I go to church on Sunday, I read the Bible, I like to hike, I like to do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Why is it that most of the time we answer with a job? Mm-hmm. Right? Where does that come from? From our culture, from our society. So anyway, so number two is confidence comes from knowing who you are and where your identity comes from. Now, a thought about that is, again, kind of going back to my previous point, in order to know who you are, that requires self-awareness. And there are a lot of people that have a tough time with that have a tough time with knowing who they are and where their identity comes from because they lack that self-awareness. They lack that aspect of emotional intelligence. And for me, just my personal faith background, obviously you can, whatever faith background you have is totally fine. My particular faith background is I'm a Christian. We're Christians. And so I want my identity to be in Christ and who God made me to be, not in a job or not in a position or a title or, whatever, right? So that's just number two. Secret number two is, again, the confidence in knowing who you are and where your identity comes from.
Number three, I'm going to share kind of a quote. This is a quote that I currently have up on our bathroom mirror.
That's awesome. Get ready.
Right
y'all.
now, our bathroom mirror,
awesome.
If you came into our bathroom, you would see this quote. It says this: the only reason you're looking for approval from other people is because you do not yet approve of yourself and trust that God already approves of you. Boom. All right, I'm going to say it again in case you are multitasking listening to this. The only reason you're looking for approval from other people is because you do not yet approve of yourself or trust that God already approves of you. And this was huge for me. This was huge for me because for so long, I was looking to other people to see how I was doing, to see if I was doing the right thing. I let other people's standards, and some of them were great standards, right? So it's not like these were all bad things. But the reality was, we kind of got in the habit of holding ourselves to other people's standards that other people had set, and therefore needing their validation for whether to determine whether we were being successful in our life, or whether our decisions were good, or whether what we were doing was the right thing, whether we could celebrate what we were doing or not celebrate what we were doing. And we were constantly looking for outside validation. And or it was coming from numbers, right? What are in business, the numbers, right? How many followers do I have? How big is my team? How much money? How many have I sold, right? We get so caught up in that as validation. And when you're always looking for outside validation, guess what? You're always on shaky ground, always on shaky sand. Because guess what? What if you do something that's really amazing, but the other person, maybe they're having a bad day and they don't notice. And now you're crumbled and you're crushed because somebody else didn't validate you. When the goodness or the rightness or the effectiveness of what you did has nothing to do with whether they see it or not, with whether they commented on it or not. It needs to come from us knowing, again, like Noel just talked about, the identity, who we are, what we want, what we have to offer, what we believe is true and right. And again, if we don't approve of our own selves, it's impossible to do that. And you'll always be looking for it from somebody else. And when you're looking for it for somebody else, you can't have your own confidence because you're always taking confidence from somebody else. You're getting it elsewhere, outside of yourself and outside of who God says that you are.
That's awesome. And do you want to share about this kind of the springboard, which I thought was a great perspective, which she's about to share. I also had not even thought of as an aspect to confidence.
Because a lot of people want to know, okay, how do I be more confident? Well, the path or the springboard to get to confidence is courage.
Oh, and let me just real quick interruption here.
Hold on.
Something that has always drove me cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. You know, there are some people, again, that are natural leaders, and if you guys study the personality types, one of the personality types is choleric. And, you know, I'm sanguine choleric, so I'm outgoing, and then, you know, some type A, and, you know, we all have our strengths and weaknesses. Every personality type has their own strengths and weaknesses. One aspect of cholerics that is kind of again, it's a stereotype, so just bear with me here, because, you know, there's always exceptions, but this is just an example. Many cholerics are very confident in their abilities and that kind of thing. And I've heard many cholerics throughout the years, and speakers and authors and stuff just say, you just need to believe in yourself more. You just need to have more confidence in yourself. And somebody that's struggled with confidence my whole life, that's struggled with depression, I'm struggled with self-doubt and self-condemnation and self-hatred and self-sabotage and all the other things. I'm like, dude, you are a freaking genius. I have never thought about that before.
That was sarcasm.
Oh, yeah, that was sarcasm. Seriously, I should just believe in myself more? Oh my, dude, you are a genius. You just invented ice cubes, bro. Like, if I knew how to have more confidence, don't you think I would have more confidence, right? So it's always drove me nuts when people just say, well, you just need to believe in yourself more. Dude, you are clueless, right? You know, when people say that, because there are other people that I just need to flick on the confidence switch and, oh, guess what? I believe in myself more now, right? So, you know, there's a lot more to it than just believe in yourself, right? More people would believe in themselves, and that's all they had to do is, I just need to believe in myself. So,
but the good news is there's things that you can do to get there, right? So it's not just flip the switch. You're not going to just flip a switch and turn on the confidence.
100%. And so some thoughts, we got some thoughts written down here in front of us for those of you guys, some of you guys may be watching our YouTube channel. Obviously, if you're on the podcast, we're kind of going through some of our notes here. Who do you know
Hold on.
Oh,
I
yeah,
never told him.
Oh, yeah. Before we jump into
I didn't give you the path
here.
yet. Let me give you the path.
Yeah.
Right? The springboard. Here's how you get to confidence. It's courage. It's courage first. Okay, so if you're not confident and you don't know how to get confident, don't worry about that. Just choose courage, because you can do that. Like, you could choose courage and still be afraid. People often think, I can't have confidence if I'm still afraid, but I think we innately know that we can have courage even if we're afraid. In fact, it's impossible to have courage if you're not afraid. Like, that's by the very definition. If you're not afraid of something, you don't have to have a whole lot of courage, right? It doesn't take a whole lot of courage to do it. So just the fact that there's something that makes you a little bit afraid, you can choose to have courage. And when you choose to have courage long enough, you kind of start training yourself to have confidence, because you start to see, okay, I can do this. So here's the thing. It takes courage to try something that you know could fail. It takes courage to risk being laughed at. It takes courage to risk somebody saying no. It takes courage to take any kind of a risk, right? In entrepreneur life, it is risk. So I want to tie together emotional intelligence with confidence, and what does this look like, right? Because we're all about teaching you guys these skills. We're about teaching you, here's the skills of emotional intelligence so you can apply it to your life. So confidence comes from self-awareness, right? So the self-awareness of what you're feeling, right? I'm feeling fear, I'm feeling timid, or I'm feeling like I'm sabotaging myself, right? So the self-awareness of what your emotions are, and the self-awareness to see what behaviors these emotions are causing you to do, right? So these emotions are causing you to have behaviors. They're causing you to take certain actions or not take certain actions or hold back in certain ways. So self-awareness comes from being able to name those emotions and look at yourself and honestly say, well, this is what I'm doing, or this is what I'm not doing because of that. Here's where self-management comes in. Self-management comes in by saying, okay, I may feel those things, and that's okay. I'm going to take this action anyways. Courage, right? I'm going to have the courage to take this action anyways, because I know that I can deal with whatever uncomfortable emotions may come along with it. And boom, you guys, right there. That's where it comes together, is when you can say, okay, this is the thing I need to do. And I'm going to trust that whatever emotions come to me as a result of it, I can handle this. I can deal with it. This is why I've been growing my emotional intelligence, so that when this comes, it's not going to sideline me. I got this. I'm going to be okay. I know how to handle this.
Love it. And a few other thoughts here that can be, I think, a tremendous aspect of beginning to grow your confidence as well is, what I'm about to say is going to take self-awareness and self-management. So again, half of emotional intelligence, the components of emotional intelligence. And that is a thing that maybe you need to do is reframing. What does success look like? Maybe you need to reframe it. Where did you get your definition of success? Did that come from your spouse? Did that come from your partner, your coworker, a staff member, a mentor? Should that be your definition of success? Do you need to reframe your success definition? Do you need to reframe some expectations? What expectations? What are your expectations? Are you operating based out of your expectations, or your spouse's expectations, your business partner's expectations, your fill in the blank, right? Progress. How are you defining progress? Maybe you need to reframe against success, your expectations, and your progress. What does progress mean to you? Does that mean, well, progress for me is, for us, 50,000 downloads, and then I will consider that progress. Mm-hmm. Man, for me, a download is success. Is progress for me. Just any forward movement. So anyway, my point is, do you need to reframe your definition of progress? Where does it come from? And then the last one is, which I think is huge, is maybe you need to reframe and redefine failure. how do you view failure? Is it a showstopper for you? Again, as an entrepreneur, for me, for our family, failure is a professor. Failure is an instructor in the journey of business and entrepreneurship. We celebrate failure in our family. We'll ask our daughter, hey, how did you fail today? And if she hasn't failed, all right, mi amor, let's go fail at something. I want to reframe what failing means. Failing is just another tool of learning. It's another learning device, another tool of learning, a professor of learning. So do you need to reframe failure? How do you know, how have you gotten your current definition of failure? Where did it come from? What does failure mean to you? Does it have a grip on you? Does it have a hold on you? Is it paralyzing you in any way? Do you need to reframe and redefine failure? So those 4 areas you may need to look at to reframe or redefine from an emotionally healthy perspective. And also, as you look at those and say, okay, I've got them, I think, all in a good, healthy perspective, a healthy place, those will also help to increase and grow your confidence. Yeah. Now, a few questions here. Again, some more questions. I love asking questions. Who do you know that's confident? Who do you know that's confident? And do you feel that their confidence comes from a healthy emotional place? Now, realize that some of us are masters at masking. So, maybe the folks, the names that pop in your head, maybe they're coming from a good place. Or if they're like me, they are a master masker and are hiding from some serious insecurities or people pleasing. But anyway, just who do you know that's confident? And then, being able to assess, okay, is their confidence misplaced? Is it, coming from some sort of insecurity? Now, why did you pick those people? Why did those names pop in your head when you thought of, who do you know who's confident? Okay, how about you? For you now, again, do you feel you're confident? Or on a scale from 1 to 10, how confident are you? What would your personal and professional circle rate you as in the area of confidence? Can you become more confident? Can your confidence become healthier? Can it come from a healthy place? Again, maybe you're operating out of an unhealthy emotional place. How comfortable are you to feel, process, and manage your own emotions or others' emotions? What we had, if you haven't listened to episode 39, we did an episode with a trauma therapist, a certified trauma therapist. And one of the things that she said is that, our nation, our world right now is going through so much trauma with all the COVID stuff and the lockdowns and the, being, physical distancing and all these different things. And she said, one of the things that we can do to help each other heal is to hold space for each other. And I was like, what on earth does that mean? And part of, what that means is being able to be in, sitting in the same place with your friend, colleague, family member that is going through or experiencing uncomfortable, awkward, sad, bad, whatever. There's really no bad feelings or emotions because they are what they are, but maybe uncomfortable emotions for however long you need to for that other person, or vice versa. Someone being in that, maybe you're feeling sad, or you're feeling depressed, or you're feeling lonely, or you're feeling disconnected, or whatever the feeling is or emotion. Do you have someone that can hold that space for you, that can be uncomfortable with you, or feel loneliness with you, or feel sad with you? So, a spot in the Bible, Ecclesiastes talks about mourn with those who mourn, weep with those who weep, rejoice with those who rejoice. That's basically saying the same thing. Can we occupy that space in those maybe potentially uncomfortable? It's easy to celebrate with somebody, or to celebrate a wedding or a new birth of a baby or something like that. Those are fun emotions. But what about a death of a family member? What about a job loss? What about a demotion? What about some of those negative areas? How comfortable are you at occupying some of those uncomfortable spaces with some of your loved ones, some of those maybe even coworkers? So those are, some other things to think about. How this is a couple other thoughts here. How important is confidence in your business? How important is confidence in your military unit, in your staff? How confident is your staff? Are your employees? Are your coworkers? Are your team members? Your fellow executives? How
confident are you leading them?
That's an excellent question. How confident are you leading confident people? Right. So those are some other questions to think about. But here's the thing: is as that you'll notice and they'll notice as you grow emotionally, and as you become healthier emotionally, both yours and their emotion, your confidence will grow as a result of your emotional healing and your emotional growth. You becoming healthier emotionally. And the good thing is, again, now your confidence will be from a much healthier place and a much healthier space. And that confidence will in turn translate into, business performance and increased growth and an increased, I feel, capacity to serve and impact your customers, your clients, right? The folks that you're working with. A couple of thoughts here. Financial freedom, which I think every entrepreneur is shooting for that. We were able to accomplish that at age 30. I don't know if you guys ever heard of the FIRE movement, financial independent, retire early kind of concept. So she was 27, I was 30 when we first became financially independent. But here's the thing: financial independence without emotional independence is not independence. Financial freedom without emotional freedom is not freedom, in my opinion. And there are a lot of organizations out there that are running and gunning hard, driving hard for financial freedom with a bunch of unhealthy emotional folks. And again, the result, well, that's a whole nother episode, but it's not, I don't feel like it's positive experience when you have a bunch of unhealthy, emotional business owners and entrepreneurs, but sure enough, they're financially independent, right? There's a lot of, and I've met a lot of millionaires, multimillionaires, very successful financially, that are miserable. Their family, their faith, their fitness, they're falling apart in every other area. But man, sure enough, they got a Lamborghini, or they got the Bentley, or they got the big giant house, they got the lots of land, but they are hurting. They're struggling emotionally. So financial freedom without emotional freedom, in my opinion, is not true freedom. Go ahead.
And here's the thing: this is why we're so passionate about this. Is we believe so much in entrepreneurs and in entrepreneurship and in what you're doing on a daily basis. And we know this: hurting people will hurt people and be easily hurt by other people. But also, healing people help heal other people. And that's what we want. We feel like the way to make entrepreneurship even better is to do it from an emotionally healthy perspective, because there are so many people that we know that the reason that they're successful is out of emotional dysfunction. That's the whole reason. They're running from something, or they're trying to prove something. And what happens is, yes, they will hit a goal, they will hit a certain income level, and they will be applauded. However, that whatever that emotional unhealthiness is will continue to haunt them over and over and over and over and over again. And a lot of times they eventually just work themselves right out of it because they're exhausted. They work themselves to absolute exhaustion. I had an entrepreneur say to us recently, she said, I want to be able to build my business, but I don't want to kill myself in the process, right? And she wasn't necessarily talking about like literally killing herself. She meant like working herself to death, so to speak, working herself into the grave, working herself into like what we did, depression, or into where you don't even know your family. You're totally disconnected from your family. You don't even have a life anymore. You know how many entrepreneurs we have seen that they have no life. They have kids that they see every now and then, rarely get to see, but they don't get to go do anything. We have seen people who they sent their kids to Disneyland with their grandparents, but they didn't go because they were too busy working in their business. They could have. It was a choice. It was a decision that they made. And we just thought, what are you doing this for? What are you doing this for? The beautiful thing about entrepreneurship is you get to create it. You get to create this and make this look the way you want it to look. But when you're doing it from an unhealthy perspective, you lose sight of that and you lose perspective of why you're doing it, because you're just working for a goal, or you're working for approval, or you're working for somebody else's blessings on your life, and you lose track of the things that really matter and why you're really doing it. So
a couple thoughts too is that, what's your retention level? What's your attrition? Those could all actually be indicators of your EQ. It could be indicators of the EQ of your culture, of your organization, of your business. This is money. You ready for this? You cannot outrun a low EQ. You cannot outrun a low EQ.
Outwork it.
Yeah, that's another great point. You cannot outwork a low EQ. Your emotional intelligence, or lack thereof, will catch up at some point. Anyway, I could keep going on about that. I've got a couple examples, but I'm going to stop there. So here's the deal. We are absolutely excited about helping entrepreneurs and leaders navigate the emotional journey of running a business and their life by helping you grow your emotional intelligence. And please check out our website at eqforentrepreneurs.com to see where we've been and where we've going and what we have coming up for you all.
And be watching September 21. We got a course coming for you guys. If you are ready and you're like, yes, this is important, this matters, I need to kind of do a deep dive, and you want to take 8 weeks to really learn emotional intelligence and change your life and change your business, get ready. September 21. It's coming at you.
So whether you're military, whether you're entrepreneurs, your leaders, your influencers, we know a lot of homeschool families, regardless of where you're at, this course is absolutely going to help you out.